Okay. Okay, we can start now.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you that you are coming, and I will talk about silicon-rich material, why this works, and why this is important. Okay, so I worked with silicon material more than 30 years, and many of my friends show me results that if they applied EcoSeal or concentrated monosalicylic acids, they have a very, very good effect. And every time they ask it, why this effect? So we will discuss about this. Oh, anyway, if you have questions, you can stop me and ask about more detail. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Vladimir.
Okay, so what is the silicon? The silicon, it is the second abundant element on our planet after oxygen. So we have a lot of this element. Just how to move. Next slide. Okay. So, and the maximum of this element, it's located in Earth's crust, and the highest content of the silica, it is present in the clay soil and especially in the sandy soil. And but usually when we talk about silica, we imaginated that this is inert elements like inert substances like glass, like quartz, sand, and another. But okay, and many farmers ask that, okay, if soil has too much silica, why we need supply these elements? But in opposite, I tell, okay, any farmers know that if farmer would like to have the high yield, they applied nitrogen. But in our atmosphere, we have 70% of the nitrogen. Why we applied the nitrogen? And the farmers immediately told that, oh, it is nitrogen in the atmosphere is gas, but we applied another forms of the nitrogen. We applied active forms of the nitrogen. Next, please. So, and with silica, we have the same situation. In soil, we have silicon dioxide, but we applied monosilicic acids. Next, please. So in this way, it's very important not only elements, it's very important the forms of these elements. Next, please. So, and if we go to the element mobility, element classification on the mobility, we can to find silica in two positions. The first is unmobile, it's like quartz sand and another inert material, and as mobile form. Next. So, and what is most important mobile form, it's monosilicic acids. It's one atom of Si and 4 hydroxy groups. And these acids are very active and has very interesting properties. Next, please. Okay, and the EcoSeal, it's concentrated monosilicic acids where the main form it's monosilicic acids, more than 90%, and these monosilicic acids are stabilized by high level of pH. Next, please. So, and The monosalicylic acid, it's a weak acid, but very, very active acid, and can react with many elements, primarily with the metal, and form it different silicates. Next. So, in the first, we will talk about what is a different example of silica, how this elements works. Next, please. Okay, as we told before, the silica located in the soil, but the active form of the silica has influence on the different soil properties like pH, stability of the organic matter, mobility of the heavy metal, phosphorus, aluminum, and iron. So during 1 or 2 hours, we cannot describe all the properties of the silica and all the effects of the silica on the soil properties. So we will talk only about selective properties. Next, please. Okay, it is the first pH. When we talk about pH, we immediately ask what is the pH of the soil, because if we have acid soil, we have a lot problem with aluminum. If we have alkaline soil, we have a lot problem with phosphorus. And in the United States, we have the both, and very acid soil and very alkaline soil. Next, please. Okay, for the acid soil, it is available very standard operation. It is the application of the limestone or dolomite. But when we apply the limestone or dolomite, we fix it phosphorus. We are transferred plant available phosphorus to plant unavailable form. And in the results, if farmer applied limestone or dolomite, he must to apply more phosphorus. And this is not good for the farmer economy and for environmental ecology. Next. Okay, but really we have alternative. Aluminum toxicity, one of the best way to reduce the aluminum toxicity, it's application of monosalicylic acids, and in the results, active aluminum can precipitate by monosalicylic acids and form it different clay. Next. And another, the monosalicylic acids can react with the calcium or iron or magnesium or aluminum phosphate and transfer plant unavailable phosphate to plant available form. Next. And we conducted a lot test which verified that yes, if we increase the concentration of monosalicylic acids in soil, we immediately increase the solubility of the calcium or iron or aluminum phosphate. Next, please. So we have the very interesting possibility where if we apply the limestone or dolomite for increased pH, but then we can apply silicon fertilizer and we convert plant unavailable phosphate to plant available form without application of phosphate fertilizer. In our investigation, we showed that if we apply silicon fertilizer, we can reduce phosphate fertilizer application rate up to 50%, and we keep it high level of the plant available phosphorus in the soil. Next. So, and this is the data shows that we grow the rice, and we applied the different rate of silicon fertilizer, and you can see that when we applied silicon fertilizer, we increased the yield of the rice, but at the same time we increased the water extractable and acid extractable phosphorus, and in the results, the total phosphorus in leaf are increased as well. So this is what is the indirect effect of silicon fertilizer on the plant nutrition through transformation of plant unavailable phosphorus to plant available form. Next. And this is very important because what we also investigated that if we applied silica, we can reduce heavy metal toxicity on the plant. Next, please. It is interesting that many regions in the United States, in the Western Europe, in China, are polluted by heavy metal. And today are very difficult to find any water or soil which was not polluted by different heavy metals. Next, please. And interesting, before 2012, all environmental organization tells that the soil pollution occurs through industrial activity, municipal waste, some accidents and other, but nobody declared that pollution can go from agrochemicals. Only from 2012, the Greenpeace investigated the pollution in Europe, and they found that 58% of pollution in the European soil come from agrochemicals. Next, please. And this is example of the label of the standard combined NPK fertilizer from the Australia. So it is a fertilizer, has a nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, but if we look closer, next please. So we can see that the same fertilizer has a lot heavy metals like cadmium, lead, and mercury. And the chemical companies told, okay, we informed the farmers that all this fertilizer has a heavy metal. Consequently, the farmers know that farmers applied heavy metals. This is how it is chemical companies protect themselves against any courts, against any activity to them from environmental organizations. So now we know that it is main part of the heavy metals which present in our soil. It's from agrochemicals, mostly from phosphate fertilizer. Next, please. So, and why it is interesting. Many countries do not show what is the level of cadmium or lead pollution in the soil, but we can to interpret that how much phosphorus fertilizer was applied. Consequently, the soil are polluted. Next. And we conducted a lot experiment with the heavy metals, and we show that if we apply silicon fertilizer, we can significantly reduce the heavy metal in the plant on the different level of pollution. Next. And we conducted really a lot analysis to investigate why silica works and where the silica works. We conducted laboratory experiment, greenhouse experiment, and field test. And finally, what we found. Next, please. We found that silica mostly protected plant accumulation of the heavy metal. So the silica created the border in the transport of the heavy metal from roots to leaves. And in the results, the heavy metals do not go to the fruits or to grain, and we can to make clean yield even if soil are polluted. Next, please. So, and we conducted, for example, only in China, we had more than 40 field tests with a complete investigation of what is the status on heavy metal, mostly for the cadmium, and how we can to increase of the yield and decrease of the heavy metal content in the rice grain. Next, please. So, and this is what is usually results. When we applied silica fertilizer, the yield are increased, sometimes on 10%, 50%, 25%, but at the same time, the cadmium content and another pollutant content are decreased. And this is very important because, as was found, that cadmium, arsenicum, mercury, and lead now has a primary negative effect on the human health. So we must to provide healthy food. Next, please. So, and this is what is the data where we measured arsenicum in rice, and the same if we applied silicon fertilizer, we increased the yield and we reduced the arsenicum content in the rice. Next. So this is what we conducted a lot test, and we know how this works. So it is. I would like to repeat that the silica stop transport of the heavy metals and another inorganic pollutant from roots to stem and to leaves. So we control heavy metal transport inside of the plant. Next, please. So it's another example that if we applied silicon fertilizer or silicon-rich biostimulator like Ecosil, we can increase plant resistance against water deficiency. And this is now, it's very important because many regions has a reduction of the irrigation or reduction of the quality of irrigation water. So, but if we applied silicon-rich material, we can reduce water irrigation application rate up to 50%, and they keep the same level of plant yield. It was interesting. It is the first investigation was conducted in the Florida. We work with this silicon fertilizer with pasture, and on pasture the farmer grows plant for the feeding of the cow. And in the Florida, it is sometimes it's no rain, but the soil are very sandy, and some field has no irrigation system. And on the neighborhoods of the farmers, which where we conducted test, the whole crop of sorghum was died. But on the field where we applied silicon fertilizers, the whole sorghum yield was survived. And this is what we start to investigate, and we found that when we apply silica, we increase the water storage ability of plant, and plant can keep more water inside of the leaves. And when plant has a water deficiency, the plant start to use water which was stored inside before. Next, please. Now it's what is the silicon effect on the plant. It is interesting that usually plant absorb more silica than nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. So by another word, plant needs a lot silica and needs in active form, in the form which plant can absorb. Next, please. So, and every year, the different plants remove a lot silica, but this is what we told about kilos per hectare of Si. But if we tell about SiO2, we must multiply twice. And for example, cereals, it's 100, 300 kilos per hectare, but if we do not apply active form of silica, the soil will have deficiency in this element, and if soil has a deficiency in some elements, we have soil degradation process. Next, please. And also it is important that what is the major function of silica in the plant, because we know that the nitrogen or nitrogen fertilizer are very important for the biomass of the plant. Every farmer knows that if he would like the big yield, he must apply nitrogen. The phosphorus are very important for the energy, and the potassium important for the growth of the plant. But it was a very big secret. What is the major function of silica? And now we know that the major function of silica, it is a plant protection. Next, please. And it is available the several mechanisms. The first is mechanical protection. The silica can accumulate it in epidermal tissue of the plant leaves and can protect mechanically against insect or fungi attack. Next, please. And it is available a lot experiment which shows that if we apply silica, we reinforce of this protection. And the next, it is a physiological protection. The physiological protection means that we can reactivate physiological function of the plants like root formation, photosynthesis process, chlorophyll content, and it is available not only our data, it's available a lot of data which shows that if we apply silicon like EcoSeal, or we can to increase the biomass of the roots and activity of the photosynthetic process. But if plant has more roots, the plant are much bigger. And this is very interesting physiological protection. Next, please. I know that it is important that if we apply silica, we can protect plants against any type of abiotic stress, like salt toxicity. So if the soil has high level of salt, or if irrigation water has a high content of the salt, silica can protect plant against sodium toxicity. Yes. Next, please. And this is what is the effect. So we are growth pits during 1 month, and then we irrigated by salt. And as you can see, we tested chitosan, because it's a chitosan, it's natural chemicals which are recommended for reinforced plant salt tolerance against salt toxicity. But you can see that the chitosan was worked, but not so well, but not so good. Thanks. Next, please. Yes, but if we applied EcoSeal, so we completely protect plant against salt toxicity. So this was very interesting results, and we found that the EcoSeal is same as for heavy metals, blockade sodium in the roots and do not provide transport of the sodium from roots to leaves. Thank you. Next. But it is one of the most interesting, it's protection against biotic stress. It is interesting on our planet, we have competition and we have predators, and we must to protect our body against predators. But the plant has no food, has no hand. how the plant can protect against insect or fungi attack or another disease. So the plant has a very interesting mechanism. The plant has antioxidants or stress proteins. This is a poison which plant can to elaborate and can fight with biotic stresses. Next, please. And today the scientists know a different type of the antioxidants and stress proteins, but the plant needs to verify what is the antioxidants or stress proteins are must to be formed or synthesized inside of the plant. Next, please. Okay, it's how this works. So this is a plant cell, and when insect come, so the insect initiates the signal to nucleus of the plant cell, and this signal initiated in DNA information what is stress proteins needs to synthesize against this insect. Next. And plants start to synthesize of these stress proteins. Next. But for this process, it's necessary time for one signal, then to look at the raw materials, and the raw material go to the ribosome, and the ribosome start to synthesis of these stress proteins. Next. But really, at this time, it's very important for insect, because insect has a time frame for eating of the plants. Next. So the plants spend a lot of time and energy to make of this chemical weapon. Next. Again, next. So this is very, so it's when it's insect or disease attacked, they has some time for eating of the plant. Next. So the finally plant produces these stress proteins. Next. But it is sometimes it's too late. Next. So, and this is what is happening when the farmer has an insect attack or disease attack. Usually the yield are not, usually the plant are not die, but plant lost a lot energy and a lot time for fighting. Next. But what is happening if we apply monosilicic acids or Comcat? It is absolutely the same mechanisms as silica and Comcat. They initiate the similar signal to plant nuclear to start to produce stress protein before insect or disease come. Next, please. So this is very important for the save of time and energy for the plant for fighting against biotic stresses. Next, please. Okay, and again, next. So the plant, without attack of the insect or disease, start to produce stress protein. And when insect come, plant already ready to fight. Next, please. So, and an insect gone without high damage of the plant. And when we go to the field test, next. So you can see that when we applied EcoSeal, we reduce the disease, the percent of the leaf under disease on practically 3 times, and insect attack on the 2 times. And in generally, when we applied EcoSeal, or we can reduce the pesticides application on 70%. Next, please. And it is also when we apply the silicon-rich material, we can protect plants against such abiotic stresses as frost. It's not long-term frost, but for the short-term frost. Next, please. So, in generally, we have very, very good effect on the yield. And usually it's ranged from 5 to 50%, and we can not only increase the yield, but we can increase the quality, reduce heavy metal, and to reduce insect attack. And so it's very important elements for both for the soil and for the plant. Next, please. So this is what is conclusion. So we have the very unique universal biostimulator, which has several mechanisms of effect on the plant. And what we found that monosilicylic acids activate plant signal system via activation of antioxidant system. And monosilicylic acids can regulate plant transport system, and all this, it's very important for both for the farmers and for ecology. Thank you.